So immediately following the deadly mass shooting in Las Vegas, Democrats put out a memo. This is the DCCC, which is the campaign arm of the Democratic Party, warned that Democrats should shut the fuck up on gun control and offer thoughts and prayers. This is amazing. Now, this memo that was put out by Press Secretary Evan Lukaske, this was written to candidates in the Northeast, said, "You and your candidate will understandably be outraged and upset, as will your community. However," and this is in bold, "do not politicize it today. There will be time for politics and policy discussion, but any message today should be on offering thoughts and prayers for victims and their families and thanking first responders who saved lives." Now, so this is the Democratic position. Oh, don't you dare politicize it. Don't politicize it. No. And politicizing, by the way, means basically talking about gun violence prevention policy. Saying, hey, man, look, if we don't want this to happen, we should actually do some common sense gun control laws. You know, we should put some laws into place, and we should look at, you know, who's getting guns and how, you know, the laws that we have in place are failing to be able to catch people, because that does happen, who slipped through the cracks, who got guns, and what kind of modifications we can make to the laws to be able to make it so that these kinds of high-tech weapons basically used in Vegas, again, the bump stock basically turning a semi-automatic weapon into an automatic weapon, because that's what it's designed to do. What can we do to stop that? That's politicization, according to Evan Lukaske, right? And he says, don't do that. Don't talk about it. Let's give thoughts and prayers instead. What is this, written by the NRA? It might as well be. It might as well be. Now, of course, he got some backlash on this one. Gun violence prevention activists said that they were disappointed that the DCCC was advising candidates not to aggressively talk about policy solutions as often as possible. Lad Everett, director of the gun violence prevention group One Pulse for America, described the DCCC email as, quote, pathetic. Mark Glaze, senior advisor to the gun group Guns Down, the anti-gun group Guns Down, said it was, quote, straight out of the NRA's talking points. That's exactly what it is. So let's not talk about gun control after a tragedy. Yes, that is exactly what the NRA says. That's exactly what right-wingers say. Let's not talk about it. It's not time yet. No, we got to wait. But by the time it's time to talk about gun control, we have another tragedy. We have another mass shooting. When is it time? There's never a time, and that is by design. They don't want to talk about this. They actually don't want to talk about solutions. All right. Now, what's most infuriating about this, about the Democrats saying, don't talk about gun control, is the polling on gun control. Let me give you a couple of examples. There's a new Politico Morning Consult poll that just came out. It shows support for stricter gun control laws among registered voters is at a high of 68%. Let me break it down into specifics and specific policies that the Democrats could talk about. 88% of Americans support requiring background checks on gun sales. 88%. It's almost 90%. 84% back preventing sales of firearms to people who have been convicted of violent misdemeanors. So these are violent crimes. 82% think the age limit should be boosted to 21 in order to purchase an assault-style weapon. 81% support requiring purchases of all firearms to be 21. More than three out of 4 voters, 78%, want to create a national database with information about each gun sale. The same percent support a 3-day waiting period for all gun purchases, and 77% support a ban on bump stocks. There's more. 70% want a ban on high-capacity magazines. 68% of American voters want to ban assault-style rifles. And it's not just Morning Consult. There are other polls. A new CBS poll laid out last week found that 65% of Americans say the laws governing the sales should be more strict. A CNN poll released this week as well recorded support for stricter gun control laws at 69%. lawmakers, the Democrats, on an issue which has nearly 70% support among American voters, says we're not going to engage. We're going to keep our powder dry. We're going to back off. Don't talk about it. Instead, here's some thoughts and prayers. If you cannot win on an issue that has overwhelming majority support in America, you need to quit. You need to stop being in politics. You need to get the fuck out of being in politics. Ridiculous. Again, they're telling the Democrats to stay away from this issue, to not talk about, as I said, something, for example, background checks, something that 88% of Americans agree with. Don't talk about it. Ignore it completely. Thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers. Now's not the time. Fucking losers, man. This is why the Democrats fail. Again, this is the most frustrating thing that I've seen. Now, of course, it's not all Democrats. Senator Chris Murphy, for example. Look, Chris Murphy's like, yeah, I'm going to take your memo. Don't care. Not going to follow it. In fact, he called this memo ridiculous. And he's like, look, I don't care. I'm going to talk about this. He says to my colleagues, your cowardice to act cannot be whitewashed by thoughts and prayers. Damn. Right in the face. Now, other groups, of course, that are not Democrats, but are Democratic, well, progressive groups, I should say. For example, Waleed Shahid is a spokesman for Justice Democrats. Now, he called Lukaske's email, quote, a slap in the face to the movement against gun violence. I couldn't agree more. Now, look, this is just one of the many examples why the DCCC is the fucking worst. Again, just last week, a committee came out against Laura Moser. I covered that story on the show a few days ago. Now, she's a progressive candidate, and she's one of the 7 Democrats aiming to unseat Representative John Culberson. So, look, the Huffington Post covered this. Not only that, but you also had Zed Jelani of The Intercept covering this story. It was fantastic. Now, it reports that the DCCC had dropped an opposition research memo about Moser. They don't do that unless it's against Republicans. They released 2 memos, opposition research. One was on Moser, and the other was on the Republican in the race. They're targeting their own. Now, they talked about her. They called her a Washington insider who only recently moved back to Houston. They also argued that much of her campaign funding has gone to her husband's political consulting firm. That consulting firm was Revolution Messaging, who worked for Bernie Sanders' campaign. Unlike a lot of political consultants, progressive consultants don't care about the money, and they don't get paid when candidates lose. So, again, they don't care about getting these multi-million-dollar payoffs like these bigger consultant groups, which, by the way, the candidate that is backed by the DCCC in this race had paid a lot of had paid a lot for consultants. In fact, in that story, it was revealed that in order to be backed by the DCCC, you had to use a list of their consultants, and you had to spend a certain amount of money on those consultants. Therefore, ensuring, of course, that these consultants, who were, by the way, related to a lot of people in these groups, sometimes through marriage, sometimes they're friends and allies, end up making more and more money from these candidates that have to use their consultant group. Well, what if you want to find a consultant that more aligns with your values, or that actually has done a better job? No, you can't do that. You have to pick from this pre-selected group of consultants. This is the DCCC. Now, of course, there was that smear as well that the group had told to the Texas Tribune. Now, referring to a piece Moser wrote in 2014 for the Washingtonian magazine, in which Moser said she would rather have a tooth pulled without anesthesia than move to Paris, Texas. Now, this is a difference between living in a small town and living in a city. Moser is trying to represent Houston. It's hundreds of miles away versus, again, a very, very small town. He took that out of context and said, Oh, unfortunately, Laura Moser's outright disgust for life in Texas disqualifies her as a general election candidate and would rob voters of their opportunity to flip Texas the 7th in November. But wait, that has nothing to do with hating Texas, having a disgust for life in Texas. No, it's having a disgust for life in a small town versus a big city. I hate to break it to you, but there are a lot of big cities in Texas. Insane, insane. Not only that, but the DCCC also revealed its huge bias in other leaked memos. In fact, they had talked about their healthcare, right? So what should candidates do on healthcare? You're not going to be surprised that it's basically the same thing on guns. Right-wing framing. Don't talk about your healthcare plan, whatever you do, and attack conservative healthcare plan. And only talk about yours when they ask, if they ask. So no positive vision. And by the way, that same memo had over 2 pages dedicated to slamming Bernie Sanders' single-payer plan. And they said, well, the Republicans are going to come after you with this. So you're going to basically agree with them. That's what they advise their candidates to do. Whatever you do, don't talk about single-payer. I wonder if it has anything to do with them getting paid by, I don't know, health insurance companies, big pharma. Only attack Republicans. Don't defend single-payer, which, by the way, is supported by over 60% of Americans. Losers. They cannot win on this issue because they don't want to win on this issue. They are paid to lose. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.